Hello, welcome to Secure the Continent here on News Central Television. This is the program where we bring you all the regular updates and security happenings across the African continent. I am Gbenga Aborowa. Before we delve into today's topic, let me first bring you the major security headlines across the continent. Police in South Africa arrest more than 130 people as part of a crackdown on illegal miners after last week's gang rape at an abandoned mine in Gauteng province. Burkina Faso army admits to killing civilians in air raid. And in West Africa, Ivorian defense minister meets families of soldiers held in Mali, hopes for quick solution for their release. And Somalia has appointed a former Al-Shabaab leader as Minister of Religion. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Now, today on Secure the Continent, our focus is on the effectiveness of the United Nations Organization's stabilization mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, otherwise known as MONUSCO. Despite its presence spanning more than 2 decades, it faces persistent problems as violent protests ensued from the people due to the loss of confidence and years of peacekeeping failures of the mission. What caused the protest? And why now? We have more details for you in this package.
In July, the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo asked the spokesman of the United Nations peacekeeping mission MONUSCO to leave the country. The government blamed him for stoking tensions that led to deadly protests. At least 36 people were killed in protest last week as hundreds of Congolese took to the streets demanding that MONUSCO leave the country, accusing it of failure to protect the local population. Protesters set fire to the nation's buildings in several cities around the eastern region of the country. MONUSCO has spent more than 2 decades in the Democratic Republic of Congo, with several countries contributing military and police personnel to the effort. But threats to violence has hardly decreased, raising questions about the capacity of the UN mission to protect the people. Originally due for a withdrawal in 2024, MONUSCO's withdrawal plan is already being drawn by the Congolese government, but there are still issues that require clarification and reassessment before the next move is made. Civilians have complained about the failure of the mission to protect them and improve security in the country's eastern region, despite showing initial signs of competence in halting the spread of rebel groups. Hundreds of thousands of people have been forced to flee their homes, and the number of fatalities continues to rise. Is this now a mission over, a mission impossible, or a mission that needs to go back to the drawing board? What next for the Democratic Republic of Congo and MONUSCO?
And joining me tonight to discuss this and more is Kambale Musavuli, analyst and spokesperson at the Center for Research on the Congo-Kinshasa. Joins me live from the Ghanaian capital, Accra. Good evening to you, and thanks for joining us on the program, Kambale.
Thank you for having me.
Now, violent protests erupted in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo in late July of 2022, resulting in the deaths of at least 3 peacekeepers and at least 36 civilians. What's the genesis of the protest?
This is really an expression of the frustration of the Congolese population. The Congolese population for decades now, this is not the first protest that we've had in the DRC against the UN forces, the UN mission specifically. They've shared their frustration that the UN mission is not able to achieve its mission itself. What is it? To bring about peace and stability in DRC. They have not been able to achieve that. When you speak to the UN, they have reasons, right, that they give. But looking at it from the Center for Research, we believe that one of the reasons the UN mission has failed in DRC is the lack of political will the UN Security Council to bring an end to the conflict. Why am I saying that? I'm going to quote Patrick Cameron, who was the commander of the UN mission in 2008. He had said back then when there was a rebel uprising of what we know today as M23, back then they were known as CNDP. He said that CNDP is not a military problem. You can use the UN mission with its military power to bring an end to the rebellion. It will not solve the fundamental political problem that exists. We have to use political and diplomatic measures to bring about peace. And what does that actually mean? The conflict in the Congo is not that complex. We know why it exists. We have two of our neighbors, two of Congo's neighbors, Rwanda and Uganda, who have invaded the Congo twice. And these neighbors continue to support proxy rebel militia in the DRC. Unless there is diplomatic pressure for them to be stakeholder at peace in the Congo, we'll keep having these UN peacekeepers observing the killing of the Congolese rather than bringing an end. They do have enough power to bring an end to the conflict. They have what we call Chapter 7, which gives the UN peacekeepers the power to engage and shoot and stop rebels, but they're not able to use that. So the Congolese protesting, they're saying, since 1996, we've had over 6 million dead. We have UN peacekeepers since the end of 1999 to present, and we have not seen peace, we have not seen stability, and they believe that after almost 2 decades, it's time for the UN to leave the DRC.
And they have legitimate reasons to also ask, given the reasons that you just stated. Now, Kambale, after the M23 took Goma, it's not the first time the M23 would invade the DRC, the capital of North Kivu province, back in 2012. The region and the international community sat up and took notice. They mobilized against it. It had a more aggressive mandate to eliminate negative forces. It defeated the M23, and the fighters fled to Rwanda and Uganda. Why are things different this time around? Why don't we see more aggression in terms of the international community? Their language is more diplomatic. And why are things different?
It's hard to tell. There seems to be amnesia of how we brought an end to the M23 rebellion in 2012. I'm very clear that the reason why the M23 was defeated on the ground was because of aggressive diplomacy. What did they actually do in 2012? The international community, at that time led by the United States, withheld financial aid to Rwanda. At the time, Rwanda stated that they have no connection whatsoever with the M23 rebels. They said that they did not support them. The UN expert at the time provided evidence that this was not true. Because of the evidence that was documented and presented to the Security Council, the United States took notice. Barack Obama at the time withheld financial aid to Rwanda. It wasn't much. He actually withheld $200,000. It's a very small amount. It was $200,000 withheld to a military training that was called IMET, provided to some senior Rwandan officials for a summer training in 2012. So, but when the United States withheld just $200,000, the African Development Bank withheld aid. Scandinavian countries withheld aid. And you saw a succession of international bodies putting diplomatic pressure on Rwanda. While putting diplomatic pressure on Rwanda, we saw that Rwanda stopped supporting the M23 rebels in the DRC. How do we know that? They did not have the military power they had anymore. They could not fight on the ground, and they were defeated, which took us to what we call in the Addis Ababa Accord Cadre, the agreement they signed in 2013 to bring about peace and stability after they were defeated. So we know how we did that. Now, fast forward to today, the evidence has been provided. In June of this year, the UN group of experts published a report showing satellite imagery, drone images of Rwandan defense forces with rebels in DRC. Just today, there is a leaked report that's now in the press. A few media, international media have seen this confidential.
I've seen that too, and we'll talk about that in details. Now, my question is this, Kambale. The M23 rebels have been dormant for over a decade after they were defeated by a combined force of MONUSCO and DR Congo troops. So my question is this: how have they been able to reorganize themselves, and what is responsible for this certain resurgence in M23 activities?
There may be a few reasons, but I will put that in the context of what is happening for the past 6 months to a year. The Congo has joined the East African community. In the process of joining, we've seen on the part of Kenya a political will to help the DRC and bring an end to the conflict in DRC. The president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, has convened what I would call a conference, bringing all belligerent, the militia groups in Nairobi to discuss peace and stability, how they could put down the guns. While this was happening, you look at now the M23 all of a sudden started attacking UN forces and Congolese army positions. So that was at the same time as these peace negotiations were taking place. As you look at the statement from the M23, what they have mentioned is that they would like the Congolese government to implement the agreement that they signed in Addis Ababa and previous agreements. So what is in that agreement that they want the Congolese government to actually implement, right? Let's think about what they are asking. We have rebel militia backed by a foreign nation, Rwanda, who have raped and killed Congolese people, who are demanding that they have amnesty for the crimes that they committed in the DRC. So whenever they are pushing for the implementation of that, that's actually what they're asking. They said, we've killed Congolese people. We want you to integrate us into the Congolese military and also forget that we committed the crimes. Right? So that's...
Kambale, a lot of people watching will be wondering where you got evidence that Rwanda is actually complicit in these atrocities in the DRC. What evidence do you have to back your assertion that the government of Rwanda is supporting M23 rebels?
You do not have to quote me. It's not evidence that I've presented. The UN group of experts, they have been hired by the UN Security Council to publish reports. 2 reports a year have clearly documented the support of Rwandan soldiers, Rwandan army officers to the rebel group M23. This has happened this year. In 2012, we had the same evidence, right? We even had the names of the general. If you look at the 2012 UN report, they named James Kabarebe, who's a general who was part of the military security advisor of Paul Kagame of Rwanda. He used to be a former minister of defense in Rwanda. And what people do not know, in 1997, he was a Congolese army general, right? So your viewers may be confused. How can a Rwandan soldier be a Congolese general? Well, Rwanda invaded the Congo, and they actually had their troops in Congo, and they were actually running the Congolese government and running the Congolese military. This is why that took place. So the 2012 report by the United Nations group of experts, and they use a methodology to share the evidence, right? They use a minimum of 3 independent sources to prove any of the claims that they put in the report. And they also provide the same report to the nations and individuals or entities who are implicated. Even in it, it's not just Rwanda that's implicated. They have even documented cases of Congolese army generals who have collaborated with rebels, who have given weapons to rebels. So it's not only singled out to Rwanda, but specifically for what we are speaking about in this report is the continuous support of proxy rebel militias in the Congo by Rwanda in this latest report, where they're clearly saying the Rwanda Defense Force is not helping for peace and stability in DRC. And this is something that started in 1996 and which hasn't ended. Until that ends, it won't give the Congolese a chance to build their nation, to stabilize the nation, and to move forward for a peaceful country.
Now let's talk about what happened a few hours ago, Kambale, talking about this report that a United Nations group of experts said had solid evidence that Rwandan troops have been fighting alongside M23 rebels inside the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and providing it with weapons and support. This is quite damning, but it's not the first time we're hearing this. On Friday, the 1st of October 2010, the United Nations published a groundbreaking UN mapping report on the mass killings, rapes, displacements in the Democratic Republic. It was a milestone in documenting crimes against humanity. So looking at this too, the ones that happened today, the UN mapping report, and the role of the international community. You did mention that the last time M23 rebels invaded Goma, President Barack Obama withdrew. There was a lot of international pressure. So now they cannot pretend. This is a United Nations Security Council sanctioned group of experts. What is the implication of this? And will the international community sanction the government of Rwanda for its conduct in the Democratic Republic of Congo?
We are in a very precarious situation in DRC. While we are discussing this, it's in a context where over 6 million Congolese people have died in this conflict. In 1996, when the conflict started, the people of DRC at that time documented the situation and have always said they know who is attacking us. Since 1996, there have been clear documentation of Rwandan and Ugandan forces invading the Congo. Over time, evidence continued to be published. In 2002, when there were peace accords, evidence were provided to the Security Council. In 2008, when the CNDP decided to start a new campaign of war and put out the gun in 2009, documentation were given. In 2012, the same thing has happened. So this is a repetition where evidence is provided and no action is taken. Now, the question should be, who should take action? While I'm looking at the international community, I'm also thinking about what should African nations do? Because the situation in the Congo is not just a Congolese problem. It's an African problem. As long as Congo is unstable, it will affect the entire African continent. So
now, Kambale, sorry to butt in here. When you talk about Africa, and there's this buzz that's been going around, you know, Africa solutions to African problems. The Democratic Republic of Congo just joined the East African Economic Community, and President Tshisekedi sits down with the Rwandan President Paul Kagame and President Museveni of Uganda. They also meet at the level of African Union. How do you do business when you're invading your neighbors? Don't they have honest conversations about these things?
And as African people, we know the inefficacy of the African Union, and that's why I'm pushing the African people for us to rein in our institutions. African leaders have made the African Union into a club. The East African community is also a club. I mean, for me, I do think it's a positive thing for the DRC to join a regional bloc, but it needs to be created in a context of justice and reparation. The Congo is joining East African community when 2 of its members are continuously pilfering Congo's resources, supporting rebels, and destabilizing the Congo. But the people of these regions, be it in Rwanda, be it in Uganda, they're not in support of the government. I mean, we know in Uganda, Ugandans are actually fighting to make sure that the leader of the country does not represent, is representative of their will. Museveni has been in power since 1986. They do not want a president there for over 3 decades. In the case of Rwanda, we know Rwandans have been fighting to have proper representation in the country. They do not condone the conflict in the DRC. Many Rwandans who speak up are in jail. I mean, imagine, sometimes we speak about Rwanda as a country where women are very well represented in the parliament.
Yes.
But the 2 women in Rwanda who dare to run for president, the 2 women, Victoire Ingabire and Diane Rwigara, they both found themselves in jail. And so on one hand, we say this is a country that has women representation. On another, women who want to now lead Rwanda are finding themselves arrested. We have people who have been killed. We even had Paul Rusesabagina, the Hotel Rwanda hero, who's currently jailed in Rwanda. He was kidnapped from his home as he was traveling internationally from the U.S. Going toward Burundi, and he was kidnapped and found himself there. So we know that the people of Rwanda and people of Uganda, they want peace and stability in their countries and in the Congo. But we are finding ourselves with leaders who don't have the interests of Africa, who don't have interests of their national boundaries, but they actually have Western interests. And that's what's very important to mention. Rwanda and Uganda are US allies on the so-called war on terror. So in the case of...
Yes. Would you now say, because they're allies in the war against terror for the United States, is that why the recommendations of the United Nations mapping report on the Congo has not been implemented? Because if it has been implemented, we will not have this deja vu situation of M23 again.
Indeed. I mean, look at in the case of the United States, Senator Mendez, who leads the U.S. the U.S. Congress U.S. Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, has been clear in saying that he wants to reconsider U.S. taxpayers' money going to the Rwanda military. They have the evidence, but there is no political will to put pressure on Kagame. Not only that, the fact that the United States is not holding Rwanda accountable, they are actually breaking a law. The United States actually has a law, Public Law 109456, that Barack Obama wrote when he was a senator. This law is called the Democratic Republic of Congo Relief, Security, Democracy Promotion Act of 2006. And this law says that the U.S. Secretary of State has the power to withhold aid to nations destabilizing the Congo.
And we just established this evening that there's clear, indisputable evidence that the Rwandan government is involved in destabilizing activities in the DRC. It's not your words, it's not my words, it's words from UN experts that have documented this evidence that Rwanda is indeed playing destabilizing activities in the DRC. Now, what are some of the consequences of this? Because people might assume that, it's just, pilfering resources here and there. What is the impact of this interference in DR Congo, the humanitarian impact and the prospects for the security impact for the Great Lakes and the DRC?
These invasions have actually taken the lives of people. When we look at what the United Nations published on October 1st, 1996, the UN mapping exercise report, that report clearly said that what's happening in the Congo are war crimes, crimes against humanity, and possible genocide if proven in a competent court. But when we look at the specific village, we look at Tingi, where we had over close to 500,000 people, where 200,000 people disappeared, right? And it is said that up to 200,000 people may have been massacred. What are we talking about? Women, children, and elderly, people who couldn't even protect themselves, killed and buried mass graves. We know also in November 1999, it's one of the cases that I always speak about, in the town of Gbenga, 15 women were raped in public and buried alive, right? After being tortured and buried alive. Every year, the people of Gbenga commemorate the lives of the 15 Congolese women who have died there. And the report that I keep mentioning, the UN mapping exercise report, that was written thanks to Kofi Annan, who's now gone today. He was a UN Secretary General from Ghana. It was written because in 2005, the UN peacekeepers came across 3 mass graves. As they came across these 3 mass graves, they felt that it is really time that we document what has happened in the Congo. So that's what actually precipitated the creation of the committee that will do the study and the report of the UN mapping exercise report. So the death toll, the suffering of the Congolese has been so extreme. It's not just numbers. I can mention 6 million people dead, but people may not comprehend. But when I'm telling you 15 women killed in front of everyone, it gives a sense of actually what's taking place. Quite a tragic situation, Kambale, and the United Nations are not just the only ones looking for solutions to lasting peace in the Congo. Congolese people too have tried to take their destiny into their hands, and we do know that no country is an island. Last year, the president of the DRC, President Felix Tshisekedi, signed a deal with Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni. It allowed him to send in Ugandan troops to pursue the Allied Democratic Forces. The deal with Museveni also included contracts
to Uganda to build roads in the eastern DRC. At the same time, your president, President Felix Tshisekedi, signed a deal with the Burundian president Evariste Ndayishimiye to allow him send his troops to pursue and hunt down Red Taraba rebel enemies also based in the eastern DRC. My question to you, Kambale, is this. Could this move by President Tshisekedi to invite foreign troops in an already volatile east trigger a proxy war, and or will it serve as a model of cooperation in ridding the region of armed groups and making it a safe haven for those destabilizing the DRC and a Great Lakes? So there are two parts to this. You could look at it as, you're just bringing, it's a world war. It's almost like a free-for-all. And I heard that the Rwandan government too wanted to send in troops, and President Kagame had threatened in public that, even if we're uninvited, we'll go in there. What's the implication of all these troops that the President Tshisekedi is inviting? And on the other side, could it be a model for African cooperation in dealing with one enemy that is just this rebel groups that are destabilizing the eastern DRC? Yes.
It's important to frame the conflict in the Congo in the proper paradigm. What is our challenge in DRC? Congo is a country that is endowed with mineral wealth that's estimated at, I think it's about $24 trillion, right? It's so much wealth. That's $2.4 trillion, actually, that's what I meant. It's so much wealth that's in DRC that everyone knows. The conflict in the Congo is a resource war waged by US allies, Rwanda and Uganda, who have invaded the Congo twice in 96 and 98 and continue to support proxy rebel militias. If we look at it from that context, we know that Uganda is an invading force, that even Congo sued the Ugandan government at the International Court of Justice, and this Court of Justice found them actually guilty and liable for reparation, up to $300 million that they have to pay Congo for reparation. For what crime? War crimes, pilfering of Congo's resources, right? This is actually a case that we won at the International Court of Justice. In the case of Rwanda, we can't sue them at the International Court of Justice because they never signed the Rome Treaty.
Status.
Right? So if we look at Burundi bringing its forces, it's another military solution that's not going to bring about peace. We know what can bring about peace. We've seen it, right? Aggressive diplomacy has brought about peace. M23 stopped operating when there was aggressive diplomacy. The aggressive diplomacy ended and has fizzled out, that we are not seeing that anymore. The path for peace and stability in the DRC will be pressuring on the negative forces. What are the negative forces? Neighboring countries is one, Rwanda and Uganda. Multinational corporations who are using these moments where there is chaos and instability to get odious contracts, or actually also pilfering resources illegally. The 2001 UN report documented 85 multinationals who have to literally pay reparations to the Congo if we have a tribunal tomorrow. And the third one, that's the protest that we are talking about. The multilateral institution, when we're looking at the UN peacekeeping mission, the Congolese people are saying, if you are up there in the DRC for 2 decades, there should be peace. If there is no peace, there should be a clear plan and exit strategy so that Congolese themselves, with 100 million people, we are a nation which is the 4th largest by population on the continent, that we believe if we have the proper support, we can bring an end in the conflict. You will ask yourself, can Congolese bring an end to the conflict? Yes, we can.
And that's where I would like to jump in, Kambale. It's been over 2 decades, and legitimate questions. You've been here all this while, and you're watching us get slaughtered. How much difference have you made? All these billions have been spent, and it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. A Congolese government spokesperson recently said, the departure date for MONUSCO might be brought forward. My question to you is this. Is the Congolese army ready, and does the Congolese government have a strategy to fill in the vacuum when MONUSCO departs?
My first answer is yes. And I want to also be careful, because at the same time that I'm saying yes, I'm not the government spokesperson. I do believe that some of the strategy, the DRC government strategy, is not proper for peace and stability. Like the agreement that they signed with bringing Ugandan military was not the proper one. But let's think about the Congolese military itself. Can they defeat rebels on the ground? Yes, they have. We've had Congolese generals who were actually defeated.
But some also say this Congolese army, there's a running joke that it's one of the rebel groups in the country. They say they're highly unprofessional and corrupt. So how do you mar that? What do you have to say about that?
There are supports that can be directly be given to the military. One of the things that was implemented under the administration, if I remember correctly, of the former Prime Minister of DRC, the previous one, I think it's Ilunga, Minister Ilunga, was to be able to pay the Congolese army directly by bank transfer or mobile transfer. That has not been implemented because it's been a cash economy. I can talk about the whole corruption ring that exists where some commanders are not providing the resources to the military. But specifically about the winning on the battlefield, the example I wanted to give you is of Colonel Mamadou Ndala, a Congolese colonel. Unfortunately, he was killed, assassinated by the so-called ADF at the time. But he's the colonel who actually defeated the M23 on the field. Why did he defeat? How was he able to defeat the M23 on the field? He was able to create a mechanism of security for communication, or how we would get communication out of the battle, because he felt that the Congolese army was infiltrated. And the more he advanced, the more he was with the Congolese population. When the Congolese government noticed that he was becoming very popular, it was almost about to be removed from the battlefield, the Congolese people came in the streets to demand that this colonel, it wasn't a general, this colonel who's actually winning on the field, need to continue. So he had the mass support of the population themselves, who worked with the military to let them know where the rebels were, and they were able to defeat the M23 on the field. Why is the M23 at the moment defeating the Congolese army? The UN group of experts said it. They are using night vision goggles, right? They have sophisticated equipment. How can rebels in the DRC have access to night vision goggles, sophisticated missiles and weaponry that they didn't have before? So the Congolese army, because of the military equipment that they have, are not able to fight the M23. When they're fighting the M23, you know who they're actually fighting? They're actually fighting the Rwandan military. Do you know who is arming the Rwandan military? Right? The UN group of experts saying that the Rwandan Defense Forces are fighting alongside with the M23. The Rwandan Defense Force is using sophisticated weaponry that is actually given to them by the US military through training, because they are allies. So that makes it even hard when you are fighting an enemy that has much more sophisticated. We do have reform that we have to do in the Congolese army. Many of the solutions of reforming the military, where you take the rebels of yesterday and put them in the Congolese army, is not a Congolese solution. It's an international solution. They have forced Congolese to go to peace negotiations. They have asked Congolese, take the rebels of yesterday, put them in the Congolese army. These rebels now wearing the Congolese army uniform and continuing to do the crimes of yesterday. That's also the contention of the M23. The M23 is asking the Congolese government to integrate them into the Congolese military, and also to do what? To forget about the crimes they committed in the past, to give them amnesty. So if the M23 is successful at pushing the Congolese government to accept the demand, you and I next year will be discussing why is the Congolese army still raping Congolese women, and I will tell you that's not the Congolese army. These are the former rebels of yesterday who are now wearing Congolese
integrated army. Into the... Now, talking about solutions, Kambale, some analysts have said, you know what, the DRC is too big for one country to govern, for one government to govern, and they've suggested a sort of balkanization of the Democratic Republic of Congo. I also want to ask you this question, because it seems like where you have mineral riches, there are peoples whose interest is it to sustain this conflict so they can exploit and steal some of these resources. How has Katanga province been able to stay out of the skirmishes? It's a mineral region. It's very stable. And what lessons can the rest of the DRC learn from Katanga?
For the first one about the size of the Congo, we could make the same argument with the United States. That the United States is very big, that each one of the states should be a separate country, but they're still under one government. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe that in the future, the African continent will be one nation. We'll be able to care for all of our people on the African continent, that I should feel strong about the livelihood of people who were killed in Lekki, in Nigeria, right? That the situation in Nigeria is tied to the situation in the Congo. That's what I'm hoping for. So seeing an African country being balkanized is not bringing us closer to a United States of Africa that I'm hoping one day we will have on the continent. So it's not the size of the Congo that is the problem. It's the greed beyond the looting of the resources. Now, when you spoke about the resources and this push that countries that have mineral resources sometimes have conflict and so on, I always bring up the situation of Norway, right? Norway in Europe is a resource-rich country. I'm not seeing Norway being invaded by another country. I'm not seeing Norway being attacked, that the civilians are being killed in the ways that Congo has been facing for the past 2 decades. So the question becomes, if Norway is resource-rich and Congo is resource-rich, why the Congo? I think it's capitalism, right? It allows, the conflict in the Congo allows its minerals to leave the Congo at a very cheap price. You see it transit out of Kigali, transit out of Kampala, finding its way in the international market, and finding its way to what? To your electronic devices. Congo holds anywhere from 64 to 80% of the world reserve of coltan, a mineral essential for the functioning of modern-day technology. Congo is the #1 producer of cobalt. Today, everyone is talking about these electric cars. I can guarantee you there is at least a 60% chance that the electric car that you are actually driving, and if you're actually driving a Tesla, I can at 100% guarantee you that the Tesla battery has Congo's cobalt in it, because they directly get the cobalt from DRC through Glencore, the Swiss mining firm. So it's the grid, it's the system capitalism, seeing the Congo as a place for commodities.
Talking about resources, President Tshisekedi's government says Congo has 22 billion barrels of crude reserves, and it's targeting a production of 200,000 barrels per day. Congo is already a mining powerhouse, produces larger amounts of copper, cobalt, gold, and diamonds, like you said, yet it remains deeply impoverished. I mean, how are they able to prospect for oil in areas where people are being killed on a daily basis? And do you think this time around, what are the guarantees that this resources, this oil wealth, will benefit the people?
There is definitely a larger problem with the oil exploration and exploitation in the Congo. In the 27 oil blocks that's being auctioned off right now, 5 of them are located in the North Kivu, South Kivu province, and the Ituri region. And these oil blocks are finding themselves just right at the border of Uganda and Rwanda. And if you have studied the Congo for the past decade, you will notice that these oil blocks are exactly where the massacres have been taking place in the eastern part of Congo. Which massacre am I talking about? It's the killings that's often attributed to the Allied Democratic Forces, the ADF, the Ugandan rebels who have been in the Congo since the late 1990s. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because the people on the ground, some of the researchers that we work with at the Center for Research on the Congo, have clearly told us for almost a decade now that they are being killed to be displaced from the land where they are. And surprisingly, this year, openly the Congolese government published the oil blocks, and we all are very shocked to see that the oil block in Beni is where the people are being killed. You look through the same thing and so on. So having today the Congolese government auctioning off the oil, I'm seeing an international outcry. The international outcry is around the environment.
Not the people.
Exactly. And that's very problematic, right? Because when the people were being killed near these oil blocks, there was no global outcry. But now that the oil is being exploited, people are going to make billions, there is an outcry around the environment. So already at the local level, the Congolese activists who are fighting are concerned that this is how the international community is seeing the Congo. Will that solve the problem of poverty and exploitation in the DRC? It will not. Now, I don't believe the current Congolese government is making policies that's going to advance the Congo to where it needs to be. Congo has the agricultural capacity to feed the whole entire world when the world population becomes 9 billion. Congo alone can feed 9 billion people. Just with agriculture, we can actually develop the Congo, right? So we have all the avenues. I mean, do you know that every year, 1 billion tons of fish die in the Congo River? Not because of pollution. They die of old age. It means no one is actually harnessing the fishing industry in DRC. So the Congo forest alone could have the pharmaceutical capacity to treat some of the rare diseases that we have in the world. But we're not actually harnessing its capacity to do so. So we know that.
Yes. Kambale, just before we go, and it seems like a deja vu because the current government of President Felix Tshisekedi is always looking at inviting neighbors to help him solve the conundrum that is the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. On 22nd of July this year, an agreement by the East African Community Heads of State to deploy a regional force to the Congo to help fight rebel groups. Are you confident this regional force will do a better job than MONUSCO? At least you can say, they're fellow brother African countries. But there was an express objection by President Felix Tshisekedi. He said he doesn't want troops from Rwanda to be part of this regional force. And in the same light, can you, if you can, sketch us a path out of this conflict? What will bring peace to the DRC?
I don't think that the new military force will bring about peace and stability. A regional force is in Congo now. It was sent by SADC. That's how we have Tanzanian troops, South African troops, and also people from Malawi, soldiers from Malawi who are in DRC. They came in what they call the Force Intervention Brigade in 2012, and their military actions alongside with the Congolese army was successful at stopping the M23. So that was military pressure accompanied with diplomatic aggressive diplomacy, which brought about peace and stability. So a new regional force, if it does not have the aggressive diplomacy aspect to it, it's not going to bring an end. But another thing that you are mentioning is you are speaking about the Congolese government from the perspective that it's a government that represents the will of the people. Maybe on another show, we could look at the elections and the accession to power of Felix Tshisekedi. This is why he has a hard time running the country. He does not have legitimacy with the Congolese population, and it has been very hard for him to rally the Congolese population behind him when he makes decisions, because people are still contesting his power from the rigged election of 2018. The path for peace in the Congo for the next few years, as we look at the 2023 presidential election to come, it will be to make sure that the leaders of the Congo are chosen by the Congolese people. That's been one of the fundamental problems of DRC from 1960 to present. When we elected our leader, Patrice Lumumba, who was brutally assassinated with the help of the CIA in 1961. Till today, we have that challenge. That's one aspect, that Congolese people should be given the space to choose their leaders so that they can be accountable to the decision of the country. At the regional level, we need to put pressure on negative forces. The rebels in the DRC are now operating in a silo. They are being supported by outside forces. That is, these outside forces are not unknown. We know that Rwanda and Uganda have played a negative role, and we have currently documentation that the Rwanda Defense Force is supporting the M23 rebel. Aggressive diplomacy that goes with sanctions, specific financial support, cutting to the Rwanda military will have an impact. And the rest will be for the African.
Yes.
Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you very much, Kambale. We're fast run out of time. I would like to say a very big thank you to you for your time and contribution to the program. As always, Kambale Savali, the analyst and spokesperson for the Center for Research on the Congo Kinshasa. He joined us live from the Ghanaian capital, Accra. Now, in conclusion, MONUSCO and its mandate require another reconfiguration. One aspect that must be urgently addressed is the capabilities of the mission itself. This should go beyond police operations to more robust and tactical approaches related to composition and deployment of peacekeeping units. Moreover, there are continually new reforms of non-traditional threats such as terrorism and guerrilla attacks in the Democratic Republic of Congo. These threats and the modus operandi of their perpetrators do not fit into the classical security or peacebuilding approach that MONUSCO and the Congolese army have so far used. To be able to deal with these changing forms of threats, there must be an upgrade of the troops on the ground and their strategic adaptation. Thank you very much for watching today's Secure the Continent. On behalf of the team and I'd say thank you and see you next time.